All right, our last topic today. We're going to discuss the science and more so observations around addiction. There's a recent article asking the question: Are we addicted to addiction? Meaning, looking at how humans interact with, obviously drugs and substances, but also food. People talk about sex addiction and everything like that. And so, what is this thing that tends to come up where when like where there is a tendency to say, hey, I have a quote unquote addiction to this, and then particularly with the fluid nature of a quote unquote scientific definition of addiction versus kind of it when you see it, so to speak. So what stood out to you in this article, and we'll have this like we have all of our articles we discuss in the show notes for the episode.
It's an interesting concept. Are we addicted to addiction? Because I think after reading this, I think there's some truth to that. Let me see how to explain this. The way that we, like our society, and we relate to it. There's a couple things. One is there's different shows for the audience that we've done on food and the social media and the internet algorithms and all that. So I think part of it is when I think about that stuff is that, yes, we are kind of being set upon by industry in various levels, whether it be the internet or food. And they already know what we're susceptible to be addicted to. So salts and sugars and conflict online and all, clickbait and all that stuff. So in one sense, we're getting pounded by that. In another sense, life for many people in our society is pretty stressful. And so what happens is there's a need, I think, for a lot of us with escapism, whatever that is. And that could be the alcohol, the drugs, other things that can cause addiction because people are trying to escape some sort of either pain or trauma or just boredom even. So I think that, we are pretty much inundated with, the susceptibility to become addicted to things. And I think a lot of us are addicted to much more than we realize.
Yeah.
And that could be from anything from caffeine all the way to
caffeine. We talked about that years ago, talking about how so much of the world's population consumes caffeine every single day.
Yeah. No, I just think that, it's another example where we probably many of us don't want to hold the mirror up to ourselves. And I don't think we can really, but I say that not bashing everybody. I just think we don't even understand what kind of addiction really is.
Yeah.
And how just all these things, whether from chemicals, like I said, the algorithms that make us click things and all these things coming at us. And it's like addiction. There's
there's chemical addiction. There's also like psychological addiction. And then, pointed out in the articles, there's no universally agreed on definition of addiction. It's been talked about how, it could be looking at it, if you want to stop an activity, but you can't, if you have cravings and if you tend to carry it out more and more. But that doesn't necessarily apply to everything we might say we're addicted to. Like if you're addicted to food, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to eat it more and more and more and more and more to the point where you're eating 24 hours a day. But it may mean that you do it compulsively. Once you start, you can't stop, and until physically you're limited. I'm glad you touched on the cultural aspects of it, because I look at this more. I think the cultural aspects of it are picking up on kind of the physiological aspects of it. I think that we're not a species that's built for abundance. Our problem is that we've developed a society that has such abundance in certain things that industry thinks we're addicted to addiction because their whole approach is to get us addicted to stuff and then benefit and profit from that, But they're reacting to something that already exists. They're saying, hey, people are susceptible to this, so let's play on that susceptibility and then rake in the profits. At its core level, we're just not a species if sweet food is something that's only available for a few months a year, or is limited in some other way, and we can't just show up at a store and buy it nonstop, then, or if it spoils fast, like with fruits or stuff like that, that's a limiting factor external to us. But in our modern society, there are no limiting factors on how much you can drink, how much you can, as far as any kind of chemical substance, how much you can, how much you can eat sweet or salty stuff. There's no limitation on that, I guess, but your own budget. And a lot of that stuff is cheaper than healthier stuff. So I think the bigger issue is more so that culturally, where we are has responded to our susceptibility to addiction as from a physiological standpoint? So I think the answer is yes. And I think actually this is actually a key understanding in trying to move forward and maybe figure out ways to better address this stuff culturally, because we are a species that is susceptible to addiction whenever there's abundance in something that triggers our brain a certain way. Again, whether that's psychological or chemical or whatever, because it's just difficult for us when there is an abundance of something, because our internal limiting factors just aren't that strong.
No, I agree, and that's you made my brain go into some interesting places here, because what I started thinking of is the attention economy. Yeah. Which many people have heard of as a real thing, which is, the internet and all these different things we have now in our lives that we didn't have, 30, 40, 50 years ago as a population to deal with. And so think about what we're talking about. If there is something called the attention economy, where industries are all jockeying for our attention, then what's the best way to make sure that they latch onto us and keep that attention as much as they can is by getting us addicted to something. And I think the greatest example is your phone. Yeah. I'm at the point where, like my 13-year-old, like I have, like there's rules, like, even when he's eating, like on our kitchen island thing, I tell him, hey, put your phone down. I want you to learn how to be without this thing for like 5 minutes, and then I think about things like video games, Call of Duty.
But hold up. But to your point, just making it a little further, and those things are designed in ways and tested in a ways to trigger addictive responses. And so it's not like, oh, we just made this great phone, and if you happen to get addicted to it, oh, we're sorry. It's like, no. We're going to create these notifications. Like you talked about the screen, the color screen and things like that, the vivid colors and all that. Like they have been engineered in ways that consciously are trying to exploit vulnerabilities that they've identified that will get you addicted.
Yeah. And also, as you're saying it's like the things like the word abundance is great, because because I wrote down here like politics. I mean, think about how many people are addicted to politics today in our lives, that you just go around, everyone's talking about politics. Like they know it, they know everything about everything, right? They know how the Department of Education should be run and how wars should be fought and all this stuff. But when you and I were kids, people didn't, obviously politics has always been important for many people, but it wasn't at this level. Like people are addicted to their TV and their phones for that stuff.
It's a part of what you just said, though. It's part of the attention economy. That for some
you're
people,
right, but
that
it's the
politics is a way to maintain their attention. And yes, it's an abundance. It's a bunch of stuff to get upset about or get happy about that don't really matter, because it's like, well, we got to give them a hit every day.
That's what I mean. It's all these different industries that are jockeying for our attention in this attention economy, quote unquote. Like you're saying, they throw so much abundance of everything. So, just like food, right? I could go get Lay's chips and eat a whole bunch of crap if I want. Maybe I'm not wired to do that, or I've disciplined myself not, but I could go in and get lost down a rabbit hole on politics or something else, and it's just that. So I think all of us as individuals in our society are constantly just being attacked by now, more so today than in prior generations, this attention economy that's trying to addict us to something so that we become a customer, or we're giving them data so they could sell it to someone else, one or the other. But it's all about monetizing. In a sense, this is interesting. I didn't think of this until that. Like, the scene in The Matrix when it's the little baby and they're talking about, like, Morpheus is explaining at the beginning, like, oh, we feed the dead intravenously to the living. Mm-hmm. It's almost like that. We're at this point now where we're from an economic standpoint, we're little nodes, and, someone's going to make money off us, either us buying something directly, like me being a customer on Amazon, or me just going on Facebook and giving away all my information for free unknowingly. But it's all designed to keep me addicted to whatever it is that I'm going to do, and just keep doing it repetitively and be in this kind of go down this rabbit hole and really not have other experiences after a while. That's kind of the
and if you think about how much of it is not particularly consequential to your life, like there are things that happen that are consequential to your life, but 95 or 99% of what you engage with on a day-to-day basis, if you're talking about the attention economy, is not consequential to your life. And so from that standpoint, the Matrix is a good analogy because you are just plugged into something that, you can handle the important stuff, like in a few minutes a day or whatever. But all of the news that you're reading, and then sometimes this, like I follow sports and I know that's not important. That's not consequential. And in fact, I enjoy the fact that it's not consequential. But so much of it is people are made to feel as if it's consequential as part of the addictive mentality of it, and so taking advantage of that is something that, like I said, we've seen industry do. The only real defense we have is things like consumer protection and through the government, because the industry, and this is where if you have a capitalist economy that's market based, you have to understand the incentive of business is always to get their claws into us more and more and more, and that it's not a fair fight individually between us and them. My willpower against their ability to manipulate and with psychologists on staff and all this other stuff is not a fair fight. And so this is where, a role of government, so to speak, is to set boundaries on what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. As easy, I mean, people accept it because it already exists, but to the extent of, hey, tobacco companies, you can't advertise on Saturday morning children cartoons. That's the kind of thing that society has had to do over time. Hey, no lead in paint, no lead in gas, because industry. And this isn't to say the industry is evil. It's just to say that we have to understand where the profit motive will take them, and then make sure when it becomes harmful things that we put limits on them, because they won't limit themselves, because the profit motive will require them to try to exploit every vulnerability. And most of those vulnerabilities they're going to exploit are in us. So that's what we got to try to make sure through collective power, through government, that we can put some limits on, not limiting, make money, but let's limit how aggressively you can take advantage of us as individuals and as a species, not for the fact that we're not a species that's built in abundance, and you can create certain certain signals in our mind and, chemically or psychologically or whatever, that really lock us in and can take us to really negative places that, is not good for society or individual.
Yeah, I'm so upset now. I think I'm going to go in my front yard and put my flag upside down.
Well, but see, clearly that's just a statement that you're making personally. That's not something you're not trying to tell anybody anything there. Yeah. That's just an individual thing.
I'm so upset that we're being so manipulated that I'm just going to go hang my flag upside down and show everybody.
Now that you said that, though, next week, I don't think you'll be able to blame your wife for that.
Maybe I can really piss off one of my neighbors so he can call my wife the C word, and then I can use that as an excuse to. And then I'll let her do it so I can say it was her. That'll make a real man out of me. So, what were we talking about?
No. So yeah, that'll be it for the day. That's a great note to end it on.
Yeah.
But we appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review it, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Until next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk to you next time.